It was a sweltering afternoon in Lagos when Toyosi stepped out of the car, her father's shiny new Toyota humming softly before shutting off completely. She hesitated, gripping the hem of her yellow skirt as her eyes traveled up to the tall gates of Rosewood Girls' Academy. The emblem of the school, a roaring lion, stood boldly against the crisp white paint of the entrance. She swallowed hard. This was her new school, her new home away from home. Toyosi, whose name meant "worth rejoicing in the Lord," had spent her entire life in Ibadan as the only child and cherished joy of her Yoruba family. With dark skin that gleamed in the sun like polished ebony, she was often told she resembled her grandmother in both beauty and mannerisms. Her parents doted on her, her father especially, raising her with discipline and pride. But his recent promotion had changed everything. With the new job came a transfer to Lagos, uprooting their family. Now, she was here, in a city that moved too fast, in a school where she knew no one. She adjusted her glasses, a nervous habit, before smoothing her neatly braided hair. Unlike her father, who carried himself with effortless confidence, Toyosi had always been shy, preferring to blend into the background rather than stand out. Inside, the school buzzed with activity. Girls walked in groups, chatting and laughing as they made their way to class. The scent of freshly baked bread wafted from the school kitchen, mixing with the crispness of freshly laundered uniforms. A group of students rehearsed lines from a play in the courtyard, while others flipped through their textbooks beneath a large almond tree. The entire compound was alive with the hum of youthful energy, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing off the tiled hallways. Toyosi barely had time to take in her surroundings before she collided with someone. Books stumbled from her grasp, hitting the ground with a thud. "Watch where you're going," a cold voice snapped. Toyosi blinked up at the girl before her. She had dark skin like hers, and her black braids cascaded down her back neatly. Even if Toyosi hadn't heard the name before, she could tell by the way the other students suddenly hushed that this girl was someone important. "I'm so sorry," Toyosi mumbled as she hurried to pick up her books. She glanced at the girl, recognition dawning. "You're..." "The name's Temi," she interrupted coolly. Temilola, whose name meant "mine is wealth," seemed to carry her identity with pride. The meaning echoed in Toyosi's mind as she heard it whispered in the hallways. From the way Temi carried herself, it was clear she believed every bit of it. With each step, she moved with an air of superiority, as though her name alone granted her entitlement. Two girls flanked her like loyal bodyguards, their smirks sharp and mocking, making Toyosi feel even smaller, as if she were nothing more than a shadow in their presence. "Welcome to Rosewood," Temi continued, her smirk widening. "Let's hope you can keep up." With a flick of her wrist, she turned on her heel, her minions following close behind, their laughter echoing in the hallway. Toyosi exhaled slowly. "So much for a good first impression." A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Don't mind them," someone said. Toyosi turned and met a pair of kind brown eyes. The girl before her had thick, black curls that framed her face, but as the sunlight streamed through the window, Toyosi noticed the strands gleamed with hints of brown. Unlike most of the students at Rosewood, she was light-skinned, and her presence carried an air of quiet strength. "I'm Amarachi," she said, offering a smile. "Whose name meant the grace of God?" Toyosi hesitated before replying. "I'm Toyosi." Amarachi grinned. "Nice to meet you, Toyosi. Come on, I'll show you around." They walked side by side through the halls, Toyosi soaking in everything Amarachi said. Unlike most of the students at Rosewood, Amarachi was Igbo, one of the few in the school. Temilola and her friends often mocked her for it, calling her Omo Igbo in condescending tones. But Amarachi didn't shrink under their words. She carried herself with quiet confidence. The warm glow of the evening sun filtered through the curtains as Toyosi and Amarachi sat cross-legged on the living room floor, laughter spilling between them. Textbooks lay open before them, but neither girl was paying much attention to their assignments. Amarachi had just finished telling a story about a mischievous tortoise from Igbo folklore, her voice animated as she mimicked the characters, making Toyosi giggle. Toyosi's mother watched from the kitchen with a fond smile, pleased to see her daughter slowly adjusting to life in Lagos. She had worried about the move, about Toyosi finding her place, but seeing her like this, happy, at ease, made her heart swell with relief. The front door creaked open, and Toyosi's father stepped inside, setting his briefcase down with a quiet thud. His eyes landed on the two girls, and just for a moment, he observed them in silence. Then his expression stiffened. Toyosi straightened up. "Daddy, you're home," she said with a bright smile. "I want you to meet my friend. This is Amarachi." Amarachi stood up politely and offered a small, respectful bow. "Good evening, sir." Toyosi's father nodded stiffly. "Good evening," he responded, his tone neutral but guarded. His gaze lingered on Amarachi for a moment before he turned to his daughter. "Toyosi, a word. In private." Toyosi exchanged a nervous glance with Amarachi before following her father into his study. He shut the door behind them, and the air in the small room suddenly felt heavier. Her father sighed, rubbing his temple as if trying to gather his thoughts. "So, you're friends with Igbo people now?" he asked, his tone measured but unmistakably disapproving. Toyosi swallowed. "Amarachi is my friend." His jaw tightened. "I had an Igbo friend once. We were close, like brothers. But he betrayed me in a way I can never forget." His voice was low, tinged with something heavy, pain, perhaps, or resentment long buried but never truly gone. "I will not have my daughter making the same mistake." Toyosi felt her chest tighten. "But Daddy, Amarachi isn't like that. She's kind, she's—" "It does not matter," he cut in sharply. "Blood will always speak. You are Yoruba. You should surround yourself with those who understand our ways, our values. Not outsiders." Toyosi bit her lip, struggling to find the right words. Her father had always been her hero, the man whose wisdom she trusted without question. But this didn't feel right. Amarachi had shown her nothing but kindness. How could her tribe, her name, erase that? She wanted to protest, to tell him that people were more than their past, more than the grudges history carried. But she knew better than to argue with her father when his mind was set. Instead, she lowered her gaze and nodded slowly. "Yes, Daddy." Her father studied her for a moment before nodding in approval. "Good girl. Now, go back to your studies." Toyosi turned and walked out of the study, her heart heavy with unspoken words. As she stepped back into the living room, Amarachi looked up, concern flickering in her eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. Toyosi forced a small smile. "Yeah," she lied. "Let's finish our work." But even as they returned to their books, her father's words echoed in her mind, casting a shadow over the warmth of their friendship. Her father's prejudice had deep roots. Years ago, when he was a young man, he had trusted an Igbo friend named Uche. They had been as close as brothers, until Uche betrayed him. They had started a business together, pooling their savings, but at the last minute, Uche had taken all the money and disappeared. The loss had been devastating, and since then, Toyosi's father had vowed never to trust an Igbo person again. Later that night, in the quiet of her room, Toyosi knelt beside her bed, clasping her hands together. "God, please touch Daddy's heart," she whispered. "Let him see Amarachi the way I do." Despite her father's warning, Toyosi continued to spend time with Amarachi at their all-girls private school. Their friendship flourished in secret, growing stronger with every shared moment. During lunch breaks, they sat together under the large almond tree at the far end of the schoolyard, swapping stories about their families and traditions. After school, they worked on assignments together in the library, sometimes sneaking in hushed conversations about their dreams. Toyosi wanted to become a writer, while Amarachi dreamed of being a doctor. They spoke about traveling to different parts of Nigeria, seeing places they had only read about in textbooks. But not everyone was pleased with their friendship. Temilola, who had already made it clear that she saw Toyosi as beneath her, now turned her attention toward Amarachi. Amarachi had known Temilola long before Toyosi arrived. From the moment Toyosi befriended her, she had warned her about Temilola's cruelty. "She thinks she owns this school," Amarachi had said once, rolling her eyes. "Just ignore her." Temilola's bullying intensified. She made snide remarks in class, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Toyosi, I didn't know you were the charity type," she said one day, eyes flickering toward Amarachi. "How noble of you." The girls around her tittered. At lunch, she and her friends would take the table near Toyosi and Amarachi, talking just loud enough to be heard. "Some people don't belong here," Temilola would say, her voice laced with mock concern. "It's sad, really." One afternoon, as Toyosi and Amarachi made their way to the library, Temilola and her entourage blocked the hallway. "I hear Igbo girls are quite resourceful," Temilola mused, tilting her head. "Always finding ways to take what isn't theirs." Amarachi let out a sharp breath, her patience visibly thinning. "Move, Temilola," she said firmly. Temilola smirked. "Oh, you're feeling bold today, aren't you?" She stepped aside dramatically, but just as Amarachi moved past her, she stuck out her foot. Amarachi tripped, her books flying. The hallway burst into laughter as she scrambled to pick them up. Toyosi knelt beside her, fury burning in her chest. "Ignore them," she whispered. Temilola folded her arms, watching them with amusement. "Be careful, Toyosi," she said lightly. "People might start thinking you're one of them." Despite the taunts, Toyosi and Amarachi stood by each other. They whispered encouragements, promising that no matter what, they wouldn't let Temilola break them. But even as they clung to their friendship, the unspoken fear lingered. How long before Temilola's bullying became more than just words? Toyosi and her mother moved swiftly around the kitchen, the rich aroma of fried rice and sizzling chicken filling the air. Toyosi carefully measured the seasoning, ensuring every bite would be perfect for their guests. Tonight was important. Her father's coworker was coming over for dinner with his daughter. Her father had emphasized how much this dinner mattered, but Toyosi hadn't given it much thought. It was just another evening. The doorbell rang just as Toyosi's mother set the last dish on the table. Toyosi wiped her hands on a napkin and glanced at her father, who was already making his way to the door. She expected a formal greeting, polite smiles, and introductions. What she didn't expect was the name that left her father's guest's lips. "Toyosi, come and meet Mr. David and his daughter," her father said warmly. David, Toyosi's father's coworker, stepped inside, his expression friendly. Beside him stood a girl who looked just as surprised as Toyosi. "This is my daughter, Temilola," David introduced, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She attends Rosewood too. You two must know each other." Toyosi stiffened. Her breath caught in her throat. Temilola. She hadn't expected her father's guest to be her, Temilola, of all people. The same girl who strutted around school like she owned it. The same girl whose clique controlled the social hierarchy. The same girl who made it painfully clear that Toyosi was beneath her notice. But Temilola looked just as stunned. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Without her usual entourage, she seemed almost different. Almost. Toyosi's father beamed, oblivious to the tension. Wow, so you two do know each other. That's wonderful. I'm sure you're already good friends. Temilola blinked but quickly recovered, her familiar air of confidence returning. She smiled smoothly. Oh, yes. We met on Toyosi's first day at Rosewood. Toyosi's lips parted slightly in disbelief, memories of their first encounter flashing through her mind, Temilola's cold smirk, the whispered name that carried weight in the hallways, and the way she had made Toyosi feel insignificant. But she quickly forced herself to nod. Yeah, something like that. Her father clapped his hands together, pleased. Good, good. You two should spend more time together. Friends are important, and I know Temilola comes from a good home. David chuckled, nodding in agreement. That's true. It would be great for them to get along. Toyosi forced a polite smile and stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Her father, oblivious to the sudden shift in the air, continued his cheerful chatter, guiding their guests toward the dining table. As they sat down, Toyosi could barely swallow the growing unease in her chest. The table was set beautifully, plates of steaming fried rice, crispy chicken, chilled drinks, and perfectly arranged cutlery. It should have been a pleasant evening. Instead, the tension clung to the air like thick smoke. So, Temilola, how's school going? Toyosi's father asked, setting down his glass cup. Oh, it's going well, Temilola replied smoothly, a small smile playing on her lips. Toyosi felt the words land like ice, her grip tightening around her fork. She kept her face neutral, but inside, her stomach twisted. She remembered how Temilola had looked down on her, how her presence had always made Toyosi feel small. But now, here they were, sitting across from each other at a dinner table, with the awkwardness hanging between them like an invisible thread. Toyosi's father chuckled, either not noticing or choosing to ignore the tension. That's wonderful. It seems like you two have a lot in common. Temilola comes from a fine family, Toyosi, and I think she can be a great influence on you. Toyosi blinked, a sinking feeling in her chest. The comment was meant to sound complimentary, but to Toyosi, it felt like an unspoken command to get along with Temilola, no matter what. The meal continued, but the tension only thickened. Temilola spoke with ease, answering every question with careful politeness. But Toyosi couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to change. She had always been the outsider, the one who had to navigate the complex social maze of school life. But now, in this first interaction, she was beginning to see the true power dynamics at play. Her father didn't just want her to get along with Temilola. He was pushing for it hard. The next day at school, Toyosi barely had time to process the awkward dinner before Temilola made her move. Toyosi, Temilola's voice rang out across the hallway as soon as she stepped inside. It wasn't a greeting, it was a summoning. Toyosi hesitated, but the weight of her father's words from the night before pressed against her mind. Friends are important, and I know Temilola comes from a good home. With a quiet sigh, she walked toward Temilola, who stood near her usual group. The moment she reached them, Temilola shoved a stack of books into her arms. Carry this to my next class, she said smoothly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Toyosi blinked. What? Temilola's eyes gleamed with something unreadable. You heard me. We are friends now, aren't we? The girls around her giggled knowingly. Toyosi clenched her jaw but nodded stiffly. She had no choice. If she refused, it would get back to her father, and she wasn't ready for that argument. It started small, carrying Temilola's books, saving her a seat at lunch, fetching her water from the cafeteria. But soon, it escalated. Toyosi, rewrite my notes. Your handwriting is neater. Do my homework, please. You wouldn't want me to fail, would you? I need a favor. Tell Miss Titi we were studying in the library if she asks why I skipped class. Every demand came wrapped in a sweet smile, but there was no mistaking the power Temilola held. Toyosi knew this wasn't friendship, it was control. And worse, everyone around them saw it, but no one dared to speak up. One afternoon, as they lingered outside their classroom, Temilola leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. I need you to do something for me, she said. Toyosi sighed, already dreading what was next. What is it? Temilola's eyes flickered around the hallway before she spoke. The final exam is coming up, and I can't afford to fail. I need you to get me the answer sheet. Toyosi froze. What? Temilola tilted her head, her tone light but firm. You're smart. You can find a way. Maybe slip into the staff room, maybe ask one of those nerdy kids who help the teachers. I don't care how you do it, just get it. Toyosi felt her stomach twist. This was different. Carrying books and doing homework was one thing, but stealing. I can't, she said firmly. Temilola's smile vanished. Excuse me. I said I can't, Toyosi repeated, her voice shaking but steady. That's cheating. I won't do it. Temilola narrowed her eyes. Are you forgetting who got you into this school? Toyosi's breath hitched. You didn't. My father helped your father, which means you're here because of us, Temilola said smoothly. If you refuse, I can make things very difficult for you. A lump formed in Toyosi's throat. She was trapped, and Temilola knew it. Before Toyosi could respond, a voice cut through the tension. She said she won't do it. Both girls turned. Amarachi stood a few steps away, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Temilola scoffed. Mind your business, Igbo girl. My business. Amarachi took a step closer. This is my business. You've been using Toyosi like a servant, and now you want her to risk everything just so you can cheat. A few other students had gathered, drawn by the confrontation. Some of them had been forced to do Temilola's bidding before, and they looked ready to speak up. You're not as powerful as you think, Amarachi continued. People are tired of you. Temilola let out a sharp laugh. You think anyone here will listen to you? She didn't see the group of girls behind her, former friends, who had suffered under her rule. But Toyosi did. And suddenly, she realized she wasn't alone. I'll listen, a girl named Tosin said. Me too, added Simi. One by one, voices rose. She made me do her projects. She threatened me after I beat her on a test. She lied to teachers and blamed me for skipping class. The hallway buzzed with murmurs. A teacher, drawn by the noise, approached. What's going on here? Silence fell, but then Amarachi spoke. We have something to report. One by one, the students shared their experiences. Toyosi found her voice among them, speaking up for the first time. Temilola's face paled. They are lying, she snapped. But the teacher's sharp gaze landed on her. Enough. Temilola, come with me. We are taking this to the principal. Temilola turned to Toyosi, fury blazing in her eyes. You'll regret this. But for the first time, Toyosi wasn't afraid. As the teacher led Temilola away, Amarachi nudged Toyosi with a grin. That was long overdue. Toyosi let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Yeah, it really was. For the first time since she arrived at Rosewood, she felt free. Toyosi's heart pounded as she stepped into the house, her school bag feeling heavier than usual. The day had been long, exhausting, and nothing like she had expected. From being Temilola's reluctant minion to nearly being dragged into cheating on an exam, it had all spiraled into something she never saw coming. But now, Temilola was suspended, and the truth had finally come to light. She barely had time to take off her shoes before she heard her father's voice. "Toyosi, come to the living room." She swallowed hard and walked in. Her father and mother sat on the couch, their expressions unreadable. Her father exhaled deeply. "We received a call from your school today." Toyosi glanced at her mother, who gave her a small, reassuring nod. Her father continued. "They told us everything. About Temilola. About what she did. About how she tried to use you." He shook his head in disappointment. "She has been suspended." Toyosi let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. I didn't mean to keep things from you. I just didn't know how to tell you." Her father rubbed his temples. "I thought Temilola came from a respectable home. I believed she would be a good friend for you." He sighed, looking away as if ashamed of his own words. "But I see now that a person's character isn't determined by their tribe or where they come from. Good and bad people exist everywhere." Toyosi felt her chest tighten. Finally, he understood. She cleared her throat. "Amarachi, she was the one who stood up for me. She saw what was happening, and she didn't hesitate to help me, even when it wasn't easy." Her father slowly looked up at her. "Amarachi?" "Yes, Daddy. The same Amarachi you didn't want me to be friends with." Silence stretched between them. Then, he sighed again, this time with the weight of realization. "I was wrong." Toyosi's eyes widened slightly. She had never heard those words from him before. "I let my past experiences cloud my judgment," her father admitted. "I judged Amarachi not for who she is, but for where she comes from. And yet, she was the one who showed true friendship." He looked at Toyosi with a solemn expression. "I owe you an apology, my daughter." Toyosi blinked, feeling a lump form in her throat. "It's okay, Daddy." He reached out, placing a firm but gentle hand on her shoulder. "No, it's not. But I will do better." Her mother, who had been quiet all this time, smiled softly. "What matters now is that we have all learned from this." Toyosi nodded. Today had been a whirlwind, but it had led to something she never thought possible, her father finally letting go of his prejudice. And that's how Toyosi's story ended.